So let's get the question that I think everyone would ask is, are you COVID positive? Cool, Jermaine. Hey, it's another week gone by, and it's another week that we're having these conversations. So great to kick off another episode. So you're not feeling that well, I understand.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Thanks, everyone out there. Yeah, it's I have a bit of a cold. Been through some stuff at the office that we can probably delve or jump into. But yeah, it's been a bit of a tough week. So just a slight cold for the listeners out there.
Yeah.
So just staying away from the office and just self isolating.
Self isolating. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a big phrase, and I know that there's a particularly important event that's happened with you and your office in particular,
Yeah.
which is why you're using
Yeah.
the term self isolating, not working
Yeah.
from home. So
Not working from home.
why don't
Mm.
you tell us what's going on, Jermaine?
Yeah, Rich. I think it's probably something that we always you always think it's out there in the world, and yes, it's in Cape Town, and okay, it's getting closer, but you actually don't realize when it's actually there what it does to the mindset, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a positive case this week, and it just put everything in perspective. Even all the chats that we had over the last couple of weeks put everything in perspective. Obviously, you have to go into Superman mode, trying to mobilize everyone.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, when you called me and told me the news, I was like, whoa, that's big. That's quite an event. And we thought, well, this is be a great conversation for our listeners and clients and just the audience, for other small business owners or micro businesses, or just to understand, what does it mean when there is a positive case in your business? There's going to be an impact all around. There's a lot of unknowns. I'm not sure about the process. So let's get the question that I think everyone would ask is, are you COVID positive?
Off the bat, I will probably say no. So it's where we tested these theories about lockdown and whether we were ready to work remotely. And my initial answer to you was basically yes. What lockdown has shown us that we can work remotely. So very good question, Richard. So I sat today thinking about that very same question. Was it necessary to go back to the office?
I also noticed that a lot of recruiting roles are not advertising work from home. They're not using that as leverage. It still seems to be the same kind of this is the office, the address. It doesn't say like it's in Randburg in Gauteng or wherever it may be. So there hasn't been the shift that says work from home, work from anywhere, because I'm sure, wouldn't that also help with recruitment, your net wider? Yeah. And also just making it attractive for those people who are really skilled, who don't want to go work in an office just because of the fear that's around it. Like in your case, somebody tested positive.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's actually a fantastic point. I mean, it will take demographics completely out of the equation, because you might have a specific skill set based here in Cape Town, and there's an opportunity up in Joburg. So, I mean, Rich, just to go back to that point now, so when I mobilized my team via Teams this morning, and I could see, even though mentally they were kind of dealing with this whole COVID thing, and being comfortable, being on a rotation, popping into the office now and again, I could see almost that fear, that initial fear that everyone had right at the beginning of our journey via COVID-19. That fear, I could see it straight in some of their faces.
Really?
So I, and obviously during the course of the day, I actually called some of them because I knew they had reservations about being back at the office
Yeah.
around about the 1st of May. So they actually got into a nice rhythm, coming in once every 2 weeks just to do whatever they need to do at the office. But now this has set them back, um, because and that's what they said. They're like, I'm I'm working remotely
Yeah.
indefinitely for now,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
that's what we were geared for. So that's a very good point you're making. What you made earlier
mm,
regarding why did you go back?
yeah.
Because I asked myself that question. Why did we?
Yeah, I spoke to a client who's based in, they national, multinational, and I was dealing with one of the consultants in, is based in India, and they were
Yeah.
saying that they still working from home. And they got the directive this week that says that work from home will continue until the end of this year at least. So,
Mm,
I mean, I know the big companies have have a lot of people not working from home. But then again, we also had another conversation just a little bit earlier with someone that's in the office. It sounds like everyone's in the office
mm,
at that
mm,
client. So it's from company to company. It's very different, you know.
mm.
And so let's step back here emotionally,
Yeah.
Jermaine. Are you okay? Are you mentally, emotionally? Are you okay?
So I I would have even before this session, even before this actually happened, the COVID positive case, I would have told you I am taking a bit of strain, but that's purely because the pace at which we were going at this last couple of months, you know, and I have taken a bit of strain, but this has just put it on a different scale at the moment, because just when
Mm.
I thought I had some bit of respite, um, you know, all of a sudden that whole going back into that whole mobilizing, um, stepping back, getting the staff reassured that everything will be okay. But if I think about it, Richard, actually nothing for them, for the guys who have been working remotely, nothing for them has really changed.
Yeah.
We haven't, and you touched on it earlier with the two clients, at the example that you made. We haven't mandated any of our guys to really come back to the office. It's purely at their discretion to come back to the office.
Yeah.
So I take a step back, and I go back to your question about why did you go back, right? Because typically I deal with questions like where did this person pick it up? Was it at the office? Was it there? And I have to deal with these type of questions, and it's a difficult thing. And my answer to my employee who contracted it was, you're gonna beat yourself up if you're gonna think where you got it from, because it might not necessarily be from a person. It could have been from something she touched, or could be anything.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors, and and then the guilt sets in as well. Feel super bad about the whole thing, and I gotta deal with that emotion as well, just to reassure the person that it's not your
Yeah.
fault, not your
Yeah.
fault. So that takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, so you're dealing with, and you yourself as the business owner, you've got this like person, this employee, someone that you are responsible for, that's now tested positive. There's a stigma,
Yeah.
potentially stigma. I don't know. I haven't really encountered any of that there's the stigma about you being positive. Um, but there's things to deal with, and you've got the rest of your employees to deal with as well, and to comfort. So now you're playing this role of comfort. You yourself must be going through some emotions, which is why I asked about you in particular,
Yeah.
because I know
Yeah.
nobody asked the owner if the owner's okay. The
Wow.
corporation is
Spot on.
fine. So I'm
Spot on.
checking in
Spot
with
on.
you. But so
Spot
I
on.
mean, for the other business owners that may have a small office, or that also dealing with with staff, like what is the stuff that you deal with now that you have a positive case? What do you practically? What do you have to do? Is there what does the law say, and what is just like the other stuff that you were just doing like naturally? What is the? Let's start with the law. What does the law say? What do you have to do? Compulsory stuff.
Well, compulsory. Obviously, I had to shut the office. I had to inform the building manager of what transpired. And obviously, the reason for the building manager, there was obviously common areas like toilets, etc. That could have been used, might have been used. But we acted quite swiftly on it actually. We then had to make contact with obviously COVID approved decontamination company who will have to basically deep clean the whole office. So we got that in place. I feel bad. My workload, I'm falling behind. I'm like, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
There's more important things.
So if there's somebody watching this that want to know, is like, what are the kind of stuff because you can't just go for testing. You have to be approved by a doctor to go for testing, or doctor has to refer you for your testing.
Yeah.
And so some of the symptom questions is like, is a fever or high temperature, your cough, your sore throat, your shortness of breath. There's and Jermaine, you've got a bit of a cold, but the key differentiator between the COVID symptoms and a cold or flu is no phlegm, because it's a swelling of the veins and the stuff inside your body. I'm not a doctor, but so it's a swelling.
You sound like one, Richard.
I've read a lot. That's all I can say. Yeah, and so the loss of taste and smell is a big giveaway, because I hear it's quite significant. And then there's some people get the redness of the eyes. There's nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and so those are the kind of the screening questions which you can ask yourself. The being in presence with someone's obviously a big one. So let's talk about that, Jermaine. What happened? Were you in contact with this person, and what's the procedure around that? Did you have to advise them to go for a test, or is this all self-initiated from the person?
So she, I mean, initially there was a cough, but it wasn't anything hectic, and then the staff member just came in for that particular day, which was a Wednesday, I think. And Thursday, Friday, it sort of gotten the whole thing with the taste and or the smell basically became an issue the Friday. But the problem was that the house doctor wasn't available because they work on set times now and only on appointments. And the appointment time was missed. So on Monday, the fever kicked in, and it was just a natural progression with all the symptoms basically. Managed to get the appointment Tuesday.
Yeah. So from the time of the without going into sort of personal medical stuff, but from the time of going for a test to getting the results, what's that cycle like?
They worked it out that anyone that she's been in contact with from the 18th, which was the Saturday, because she did keep like a diary, the symptoms that she's gone through or had, and then for some reason they got the 18th as a date, which was the Saturday.
Yeah.
So she went to Tuesday. Even at that point, when the doctor referred, even at that point they didn't really want to do the test for reasons unbeknown to me. The COVID test. Eventually they did it, and then so that was the Tuesday, and then Wednesday evening she got the results.
Yeah, so just over 24 hours then.
Yeah, so it was about 24 hours. Yeah, then they worked it out till about the 18th. So anyone in contact with her from the 18th supposedly had to go for a test, but I didn't know how they got to that date. because, like I said, she was in the office the Wednesday, and yeah, that was the last time we actually saw her.
Wow. Okay, so what's the financial impact here? Surely there must be some financial impact. Or and is there any business insurance claim that you can make? This is an event that's now happened. You need
Yeah.
to do stuff. You need to clean your office. I'm expecting,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
so as a
Yes.
small business, how do you manage this? Especially when we're in a situation where cash flow is tight. There's not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of opportunities. Now you've got this extra overheads,
Mm-hmm.
and what's the demand going to be post this positive case?
Mm-hmm. So obviously, for me, I think the expense around the decontamination of the office, but something I definitely want to have a look into, Richard, is I don't know whether there's going to be a cost levied from where she's based, the quarantine place, to her, or is it an expense that she will have to bear, and then obviously I will probably have to jump in there and see if it's something that we can recover. So I think you touched on it last week as well, or was it the week before, where we spoke about insurance, whether it's a good time to start looking at what you can recover, etc. Or is your policy covering COVID positive cases and expenses around that? Because I mean, as you can imagine, it's quite a senior resource, that we that fulfills a senior resource. So yeah, it's
So there's business
it's a lot to think.
continuity. It's a senior
Yeah,
resource.
yeah.
If you have different kinds of insurance on Keyman insurance, you could probably tap into that. But this is such sort of unprecedented times that none of us really know what to do next, which is why a conversation like this, I think, is so valuable for our audience. And so we got that. So somebody's now in quarantine. It sounds like she's at a quarantine center and not self-quarantining like you are.
Yeah. So the question was asked, if is it possible to quarantine at home, and the answer to that was no, because the family and a child lives with her.
Okay.
And then obviously the possibility of a quarantine center was made available. They were quite good. They picked her up within an hour, and they whisked her off. And she was the only person in that specific vehicle. So
yeah. Cool. So this is obviously, I mean, uncharted territory for you. So we know that there's a financial impact in terms of having get your office cleaned. You alluded to some of that. Is it expensive?
I off the bat, I actually thought it might be. I mean, I was chatting to Alan beforehand, and when I gave him the quotation, he was like, "Huh? This doesn't sound right." And it wasn't that expensive. It was under 1,000 rand, but with that it came. Obviously, it was based on office size as well, because they work off a square meterage. And then they do send you the cover letters and who they are, what standards they are held to in terms of they are COVID, they are part of the COVID initiative in terms of their specific standard that they adhere to. So, and I guess it's such a saturated market at the moment, Richard, that everyone's trying to be competitive.
I mean,
so,
I think in our first conversation, we spoke about new business applications. New codes are all sort of personal protection equipment type companies now. So, so if you're looking at more or less your office square space, what kind of square meterage do you occupy?
I think we could be between 80 and 90, eh?
Yeah.
Cool. If you drop all those partitionings in between, the dry walling in between, and you just knock everything down, it could possibly be about 85 squares.
So if you've got a business around about 85, 90 square meters, and you do have a positive case, you're looking at a cost of under 1,000 rand would be your sort of benchmark pricing if you don't know. So if your suppliers out you quoting you 5,000 rand, maybe that's a bit much. Maybe you want to reach out to Jermaine and get a competitive quote from what he's saying. And from what I'm understanding, there's lots of compliance certificates that comes with being a company that needs to do the cleaning, because I think it's called the deep clean or something like that. Something
correct.
Very weird. Like the restaurant industry has been doing deep cleans for a long time, and yet they are the ones sitting kind of at the back of all of this, not being allowed to open, and won't get into the process that happened today or tomorrow. So Jermaine, thanks so much for taking the time to share this story with us. Any closing thoughts? Like what's on your mind? What do you want to tell the people?
Well, yeah, I mean, I personally, you always hope that you don't have to go through something like this. And then when it actually happens, I think as entrepreneurs or business owners, I think it's just a natural reaction for you just to go into that mode of, okay, mobilize. It has to happen. It's pointless. You rest on your laurels and go, what about me? Right? Because I think it's a normal reaction to go, if this person's got it, there's every likelihood I might have it. So that didn't even feature. It was just about, right, we got an issue. Let's deal with it. Whatever comes from it afterwards, we'll deal with that as well. So, I didn't have a script in terms of, okay, when it happens, this is what you do. Then you go to point B to point C. No, I acted as best as I could, and I think the measures we did put in place should suffice. So yeah, that's my final thought, Richard, on the matter.
Yeah, cool. So just you brought up one thing. Is there a script? Is there a procedure that we're supposed to follow? Like, because do you have to submit to the Department of Education, but the Department of Labor, Department of whoever departments that you need to submit to?
I mean, that's a good question. It's probably something I want to look into. I think initially our initial obligation was just to inform the building manager. Now, I'm not too sure if it's something the landlord has to do in terms of whether they should know there's a hotspot. I'm not too sure. I can imagine they got the staff members' details when they did the testing. So in terms of where she lives, place of work, etc. So it's a good question. It's probably something I should look at, Richard.
Yeah, cool. So I'm sure we'll make that available to you somewhere over here.
Fantastic.
Okay, so amazing. Thanks so much, Jermaine, for sharing that. From my side, it's scary but also very educational. And if this is your first time watching one of these videos, Jermaine and I just have general conversations where we sort of work through some of the things that we've experienced over the last decade, running our own businesses, growing our own businesses, and dealing with all the challenges that come with it. And this has been a big challenge for Jermaine. Sure, I hope I don't have to go through that.
Fantastic. So Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Jermaine, great talking to you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.